Welcome back. Well, the Giza Zoo is one of the most important green areas in the city and one of the largest parks. But it also has such a historical background. To shed more light on this, we are very much delighted to have with us Dr. Mahmoud Al-Halwagi, former Egyptian Museum General Director and archaeological expert. Thank you very much for being with us, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Mahmoud, we always hear about the importance of this place, the Giza Zoo, and its of course historical background and the rare stuff that has been settled in this place. Tell us more about the history of the Giza Zoo.
This zoological garden is considered one of the greatest and oldest in the area, in Africa and Arab region and Middle East. It was the second zoological garden worldwide. The history of this garden goes back to 130 years ago. It was inaugurated to the visitors in 1891, 1st of March. There was some other places before establishing this garden, like Gzira, Sarai Gzira, which is right now Marriott Hotel. This was a beginning of the zoological garden in Egypt. This was about 1860. And then when they started to establish this garden was about 1871. The Khedive Ismail, who was thought of establishing this garden, and most of the collections, whether fauna and flora, was obtained from his private collection. He brought all these species from different parts, like South America, in Africa, South Africa, in Asia, on all his trips, as well as different types of animals also brought from different areas. After the inauguration of this garden, there was different types of animals, like lions, like reptiles, like birds, like baboons, chimpanzees, and other types. So historically, this was called, the Giza Zoo was called the jewel of the crown of all world zoological gardens. This is the importance of such a great garden all over the world.
But sir, we can say also that there are sections which really enjoy a historical background or a deeper historical background than others here in the Giza Zoo. Would you please elaborate if there are sections which I can consider historical?
Most of the sections we can consider it as historical sections. In comparison between other gardens all over the world, such as Old Lion House, such as Elephant House, Baboon's Mountain, reptiles. All these sections are very important, as well as some birds like lovebirds, like other type of birds, as well as section of hippopotamus. It is a very distinct section in this garden. So most of these sections are very distinct and very rare in comparison between other gardens all over the world.
Of course, there's an important place here, which is the museum for the mummified animals.
Right.
There are unique, let's say, pieces in this museum. Tell us about the most important animals and the history of this place also.
In fact, this museum is especially distinct by its animal museum because it houses some rare animals, some animals endangered, housed in this garden, as well as some skeletons of rare types of animals, and some of most important animals, mummified animals, because they used to mummify the deceased rare types of animals died in this garden since 1910. They started to mummify these animals and to put them mummified on display in the museum, animal museum in this garden.
Could we say, sir, that this is a continuation of what the old Egyptians have done before? I mean, even the deities, the gods we had, and it was the head of a dog, and the rest is a human being. Horus is a falcon. I mean, the black cat, for example, had such a place in our history. What we are talking about is a continuation, or we are resuming what the old generations did?
In fact, this is a good question. In continuity between ancient Egypt's history and the modern Egypt history, animals played a great role in ancient Egyptian civilization, as you mentioned. Egyptians appreciated most of animals as a gift of God, and they appreciated their role in the life of ancient Egyptians. Therefore, they appreciated and worshipped as a gift of God, as a symbol for good ideas and good thoughts of ancient Egyptian civilization and ancient Egyptian life. For example, the cat was adored and appreciated in eastern of Delta, in Tell Basta. And the name of Tell Basta comes from the name Pastet, the name of the cat's deity. Even up till now, we call, in some areas in Egypt, they call the cat Bessa. That's what we call inherited history. As well as a bird like falcon was the strongest falcon in the sky. It was a representative of God Horus, son of Isis and Osiris, the most sacred triad in ancient Egypt. So because Horus was the strongest bird in the sky, so it was representing kingship in ancient Egypt. And the king who is ruling Egypt is representing Horus on earth. For example, the holy goddess Hathor, the holy cow, which played a great role in Egyptian mythology and Egyptian civilization. She brought Horus to life and took care of him when he was young, when his mother, Isis, delivered Horus. He was a newly born baby. She heard about the assassination of her husband Osiris by his brother Set. So she left her baby in the marshes of Delta, and she went to collect the parts of the body of her assistant husband. So she left the baby in the marshes of Delta beside a cow. So the cow took care of the baby. She suckled the baby. She cleaned the baby. She ground him up, and she protected him. That's why the ancient Egyptian appreciated the cow Hathor, and the name itself Hathor means the house of Hor. She was like a house for Horus when he was a young baby. And also the Egyptian also appreciated Hathor because they get use of her milk, of her meat, of her skin. So the Egyptian appreciated animals for different, because of they get benefit of these animals, and because the animals helped the Egyptian, like baboons was appreciated in Minya, in Ashmonain, and it was a symbol of wisdom and knowledge. As well as a bird, which is ibis, was also a symbol for knowledge and wisdom, and it was also a good helper for the peasants, for the farmers. They helped the farmers during cultivation or during cultivating their lands. So many animals had played a great role in ancient Egyptian civilization, and ancient Egyptian themselves appreciated and adored them as a gift of God and for their roles in their life, and therefore they mummified these sacred animals, and they built a special cemetery for sacred animals in different parts all over Egypt. For example, also in Saqqara there is a huge cemetery for sacred bulls, which is called Serapeum. So there are plenty of examples. We can talk a lot about this, which will take longer and other episodes for talking about sacred animals in ancient Egypt.
Of course, since the inauguration of this place, the Giza Zoo, since it was built and inaugurated in 1891 on March 1st by Khedive Ismail.
Right.
It was the talk of the whole world at that time. And until now, people are talking about this place as a historical place, rare, one of a kind in the Middle East and Africa. Why this zoo has its place until now?
As you mentioned, this garden is the largest in area. It's about 80 fidens, and it has rare animals, species of animals, and plants and birds and reptiles. So it is the most iconic place to visit, not only by the Egyptians but also by visitors of Egypt from everywhere. Can you imagine that this garden annually has about 3.5 million visitors? This reflects the importance of this garden and the collection of the garden from fauna and flora. You cannot imagine, and all of us when we were young, we were very keen and very interested in visiting this garden when we were young kids in schools, even when we are in universities, and when we are like parents, we used to bring our kids to this area. It's not only a zoological garden, but also it is a garden. It's a place where most families would love to bring their families to visit their babies. It is considered as an educational center and also as an environmental center. There is a center already in this garden is for awareness, to increase the awareness of environment, and also to educate students about different type of animals and birds and plants in the nature, not only in Egypt but also in different types and different places outside of Egypt, in Middle East and Africa, and even in South America and in Europe. And also we receive some immigrated birds which we have, which they come during winter time to Egypt. So we have diversity in this garden, which attracts more visitors to visit this garden.
Right, you are, sir, and always the visit to the zoo here is a day which we can never forget. Unforgettable visit, unforgettable day, and a memory which is all the time going to keep its dear, valuable place in our hearts and minds as Egyptians. But, sir, since you are here, I should see the opportunity to ask if we had zoos in ancient Egypt. Have we had? A yes or no question.
Yes, there is. There was. The mummified, sacred animals, cemeteries, was a part of some zoological gardens in ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, because they love the wild life and they appreciated the role of the animals. So you can find in ancient Egypt zoological gardens. One of the most these gardens was established by a very famous king called Thutmose III, who ruled Egypt in 18th dynasty.
Dr. Mahmoud, I think we need another episode to know the answer for this very important question.
It's a very important question.
But actually we ran out of time. Dr. Mahmoud Al-Halwagi, former Egyptian Museum and General Director and archaeological expert. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're moving to a quick break, so please stay tuned.